So to really just emphasize the idea behind databases and models and how those all work, we're going to be replacing the SQLite 3 database in our project with Postgres. And the first question might be, well, why is that? Well, in a small little local environment, our SQLite 3 database is going to do just fine. Like, it's really going to handle the job, no worries there. But as projects get bigger and bigger and more complex and more data is being saved into your database, you need to have something more robust like a Postgres. And that's the most popular database. As I said before, there's lots of other databases, but essentially at some point your project is going to want to move over there. So you might as well start there so that you don't have to have the pain of trying to do a huge migration. And it's really not too much to set up. So let's go ahead and open up a new tab. Just go ahead and search for Postgres. I believe the URL is postgres.org. postgresql.org, but Google can take you there as well. But basically, we just want to go ahead and get this installed on our computer. So we want to run this database locally here. When we upload our project to a server, we're going to have to do that there. But go ahead and see what it looks like for your individual operating system. So if you go over to the download page here, there's going to be all sorts of options here, right? Like Linux, Mac OS, Windows. But the one that I really prefer if you're on a Mac is if you go to Mac OS, go ahead and click on this. There's a couple of different versions here, but it's this Postgres.app. This is a really visually user-friendly sort of operation here. So I recommend going ahead and going with this one. So we'll go ahead and get that download started here. And it's got a nice little guide here to see everything that you need to do to get this up and running if you have any sort of situational problems. And there's going to be guides for the other ways too. So if you're on Linux, you're on Windows, don't worry, you're going to have documentation there as well. But the basic idea is that you've just got to get Postgres up and running on your computer. So let's go and wait a second for this download to finish. For my Windows users, I'd just like to walk through the download process with you. So go ahead and hit the same download button. You're going to want to make sure that you move over to Windows and then choose the download the installer. So this will go ahead and fire up the download. I guess you'll have to actually go ahead and choose your version here first. Most Windows machines are running on the 64 platform, so just go ahead and pick that download. If you know that you're on a 32-bit system, go ahead and choose one of those. The version doesn't necessarily matter. There hasn't been massive changes through Postgres, but you can see it starts this download for us. I've already installed this, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel this. But just go ahead and follow all the steps through the installation. Leave everything as default. When it asks for a password, just make sure you remember your password. You'll see as we go through the videos that I'll actually show you how to change the password to whatever you want later, but make sure you can remember the password that you used during installation. Then to get to the same point as me in the video, where in the terminal you can be working and accessing the Postgres terminal, just go ahead and go to your start menu here. You're going to want to scroll down until you can find Postgres. You can see there's a couple different versions I installed here, but hopefully you have the 11 version. Again, earlier versions are fine, but just go ahead and pick that. And then you want to go down to the SQL shell. If you go ahead and just click on this, it opens up a shell with your environment here. And so just go ahead and hit enter for localhost. That means it's your own server here. Which database do you want to work with? For the initial one, just go ahead and hit enter for the Postgres. Now for the port, and again, during installation, it's going to ask you about that. It should be 5432. I previously had installed Postgres here on this Windows computer, and so the only one that was open was 5433. I guess there was a lot of other open ones, but I just chose one that was closed. So just do whatever it recommends here. If you end up not doing 5432, like me here, if I have 5433, just make sure that in your settings and stuff that you put the appropriate port. And then see, you can do the same username, Postgres, whatever, and then have the same whatever password you use during installation. Go ahead and enter that, and then it will take you to this point, which this is the exact same thing that you'll see in the videos. So there you have it. Just wanted to give you a quick walkthrough so you can get on the same page. Now for Linux users, there's lots of different distributions out there. And so ultimately, I would recommend going to Google and just searching how to install Postgres on your specific Linux distribution. If you're using Ubuntu, these are the 3 steps essentially that you need. You could go get something a little more in-depth if you'd like, but regardless of your distribution, your goal is to get to that shell where you can start entering in Postgres commands like you saw with Windows, and you're going to see here in a second with Mac. So if you need any help, reach out in the Q&A, but this should be enough for you to move forward. All right, so my download finished, and I went ahead and opened up the installer, and it brought me here. So I'm going to add Postgres to my applications. We'll go ahead and give that a second to move over. Now again, if you're on Windows or Linux, go ahead and just follow any sort of setup guide it has there on the Postgres website. You basically just need to get into the Postgres command line, and that's where we're going to move forward and create our databases and stuff. So if you have any issues, please leave it as a comment to this video. I'm here to help you and get you to that next step, but the guides here are really good, so you should be all right. All right, with that installed in applications, I'm going to go ahead and open up Postgres. Looks like maybe because I just installed it, it's not showing up automatically. But let me go ahead and find that. There it is, Postgres. And we'll open this up. So the basic idea here, Postgres is its own database that's living by itself, and it's going to run as a little mini server that can be connected to over a certain port number, and then our application over here is going to communicate back and forth with it through that port number. So we've got to get Postgres set up here, and then we can connect it with our project. So sort of step by step, we're going to get this thing up and running. And when you get to a really big scale, like huge websites, they'll have a completely separate server that just runs the database, and then you've got the other server that's running like your Django app. Like the bigger and bigger things get, it gets more complicated, but we're going to keep it fairly simple here. So with this, we want to go ahead and initialize, start a new Postgres sort of session here, get it onto our computer. So we're going to hit initialize, and you can see it's already created a few databases for me here. But if you want to go ahead and connect with Postgres, it should be up in your top menu, and you can click on it and you can say preferences here. And yes, let's check automatically to go get updates for that. But you want to have this probably checked, this automatically start Postgres on login, because that basically says, hey, whenever somebody logs in here, you have that database ready so that when you're working on your project, you'll know that database is ready for you. But it could be a little bit of a strain on your system, so if you don't want that, feel free to go ahead and uncheck that. But and I think it's good to open it up with terminal. That's what we should want. So I'll go ahead and X out of the preferences there. Let's go ahead and look at one of these databases that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on Postgres here. And you'll see it opens up a little terminal page here, but if you have this Postgres equal to hash, even if you're on Windows or Linux, this is what you should have. And so what you want to do here is go ahead and type a backslash and then a DU. This is going to show you all the users that are inside of your computer that are working. So there's one that's just my name on the computer right now. That's the Zappy code. And then there's Postgres here as well. But what we want to do is we want to use this Postgres one. And so we need to go ahead and set a password for this. Now, in order to set a password, we're going to go ahead and do a backslash, and then we're going to say password. And we want one for the account of Postgres. So it's going to ask for a new password here. By default, it's blank. So it's asking for a new one. Again, you'd want a really good, strong password here, but just for development, I want to keep this thing easy. So I'm going to say Django 1234, hit enter on that, and then Django 1234. Okay. So now that we've done that, we have access to this Postgres user account. The next thing that we want to do is we want to create a database. So to do this, we're going to, and basically this is a database for our Django project. So every time you have a new project, you want to have a database for it. And a database holds inside of it lots of tables that represent the model. So for example, our jobs, our blog, it's all going to go inside of this one database. You have one database per project. So in all caps, we want to type out create space database, and then we're just going to give our database a name. So I'm going to call this maybe like Portfolio DB, and then you have to end it with a semicolon and hit enter. Okay, so after you're done that, it will go ahead and create a database for you. And really, that's all we need. Like, we can actually go ahead and close out of Postgres here. I'm going to terminate that tab. Now that that is up and running, we have a database that we need. We essentially just need to connect our